In Chapter 6, we're going to be taking a look at inheritance. Again, another one of those words that's very creepy. What does inheritance mean? It's confusing, like encapsulation. Luckily, once again, it's very simple. Just think of the word inherit. In the same way that a boy inherits the qualities of his mom and dad, you can create classes that inherit the properties and methods of a different class, and this is called inheritance. So imagine that maybe on github.com you download a PHP class. And it's great, but you wish it had an extra bit of functionality that's not already included, whatever that might be. You could then create your own class, have it extend the parent class or the class that you downloaded from GitHub, and then you can either override existing methods or properties, or you can expand those existing methods to have more functionality, or you could create new methods altogether. And this is called inheritance. Well, if you're like me, your first reaction might have been, why go to the extent of creating a child class when I can simply access that existing class and extend it with more methods or properties? Yes, you could technically do this, but it's generally considered a bad practice. Think of the classes that you download, especially the larger, more developed classes, as well-oiled machines. So if you go ahead and start editing and maybe changing these existing classes with your own methods, what happens when 6 months down the line, the creators of that class release an update that offers more functionality? Then you can't really download anymore because you've already made all of these changes to the core files. But if you extended it with your own class, then it would just simply be a matter of copy and paste to update your class to the new improved one. And then you can make changes that way. So whenever possible, especially when using somebody else's code or especially a larger project, don't edit those core files and instead extend them with a child class. So we'll take a crash course in working with this. In our project, let's take a look at what we have. In my Chapter 6 folder, I have created an index.php file. I have two classes, easily named parent class and child class, and you can see right here I am requiring parent class, but neither of these classes have anything just yet. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that. Within PHP, let's go ahead and create our class. So it should, according to best practices, receive the same name as our file. So class, parent class. This is probably not the best name, but it's easy for the demo. And let's go ahead and create our constructor function, construct. And just to be quick, we'll echo constructor function was called. And I also want to say on the class. So for now, we'll just hard code that in on the parent class. So if we come back, we've required it. Let's go ahead and run that file. And of course, we should instantiate it, of course. So let's go ahead and do that right now. P for parent equals a new instance of the parent class. Refresh the page, and now we have constructor function was called on the parent class. Okay, I'm going to teach you one quick magic method, and that's called, just as construct for constructor or destruct for destruction are called magic methods. That's a magic method. There's several more. Actually, there's about a dozen. One of them is called class. And this refers to the name of the class that it's contained within. So in this case, this would be equal to parent class. Okay? So let's get rid of that. And now, instead of hard coding, try not to ever hard code the name of the class if you don't have to. In this case, we're just echoing it out, so it's not a big deal, but we can go ahead and work on that. And I'm going to append class. Refresh the page, and now you can see constructor function was called on parent class, and that is the name of the class. So if I change that to classes, whoop, well, of course that's not going to work until we do that. And there we go. So let's go ahead and remove that, and we can continue on. So now let's go ahead and we have our parent class. Maybe we can add one more public function, and we'll say public function do something. And once again, we're not going to work on the functionality right now. We'll do that in our projects, doing something. And if we want to call that, you should know by now, we just call P doing something. But remember, these are just for the demos. Try not to ever echo anything out from your class if that doesn't make sense. Instead, you return it. So we could, if we're returning a string or we're returning a Boolean, so here we'd return it, and then we could either contain that, result equals that, echo result, and that would be whatever that string was, or if you need to, you can just echo that out entirely. And so now we have constructor function was called on the parent class, and we don't have any separator, but we have doing something, showing that the function was called. So why don't we go ahead, just to keep things clean, I'm going to append a break tag to each of these. Okay, there we go. So now let's work on our child class. And we're going to imagine this parent class does some kind of functionality. Maybe it's a Twitter client, or not a client, but a Twitter class, or a Picasa class, or a Tumblr class. Now, it doesn't do enough of what we want. So we're going to extend it with our own class. So we'll say class, child class, and here's how we can inherit the properties and methods of a different class. First, it needs to require that parent class in order to know what to receive. So you can either require it once here, like so, or you can require it from directly within your class. Do whichever you prefer. Some people prefer one way, some people prefer another. I'm going to keep them right here just for this demo. And now, to declare that it should extend the parent class, I use the extends keyword, and it extends parent class. Okay, so let's keep that as it is. And now I'm going to go back here, and let's go ahead and create a new instance. So I'll get rid of that. And I'm going to say C for child equals a new instance of the child class. So now we're going to call that, and let's see what happens. Constructor function was called on the parent class. So if I get rid of parent class and I refresh the page, we're still getting constructor function was called. And that is specifically because we extended the parent class. Save it, refresh, we're not getting anything. Now we do. And that is because it inherits these properties and methods. So in this case, it inherits the constructor function, so that runs by default in the same way that it does for the parent class. So let's say though you need something special to happen when this class is instantiated, so you're gonna append, so to speak, to the constructor function. Okay, and we're just going to say echo class has been instantiated. And let's make sure we add a break tag as well. Okay, let's refresh the page, and now we have child class has been instantiated. But there's one problem here. Because we created this constructor function, it, unlike some other programming languages, overwrites the parent class. So when you declare a function with the same name as its parent class, it assumes that you want to overwrite it completely. And in this case, we echo this out, and anything within here gets ignored because it's never even called. Refresh, child class has been instantiated. Okay, so what if you do need that functionality from the parent class? Let's say whatever, maybe this connects to a database or does some kind of opening operations, sets properties. What if you need that? Okay, you need to go ahead and call it manually. So the way to do that is we could do parent class construct. That might be how you would think to do it, right? So let's try it out. Refresh the page, and we get syntax error, unexpected T-object operator. So no, that's not what you would do. Instead, you want to take advantage, once again, of the scope resolution operator. So let's try this one more time, and this time we're going to refer not specifics. We're not going to write parent class. Instead, we're going to refer to the parent class of this class, and it can only have one parent class. So I'm going to say parent. So now we're accessing here, and we want to access this constructor function. So we use the scope resolution operator in the same way that we did with static functions and methods, slash methods. So now let's save that, refresh the page, and we are now calling that function. Constructor function was called on the parent class, and then we extend it to do anything else that we need to, which is represented right here. So the same is true for this. Let's do another public function, do something. And if we want to just echo out, echo, why don't we go ahead and just copy that right there, just for the example. is now doing something. So let's go ahead and call this. And we'll do it right here, and we'll see C doing something. Refresh the page, and now we get child class is now doing something. And again, this works on all methods. It's not just the magic constructor function. Here, we can do and we don't get anything there. So again, if we want to access or go ahead and call the actions from the parent method, we need to do that. Parent construct. Refresh. Whoop, what am I doing? Parent. What did we call this? Do something? Yeah. And of course, let's get rid of that underscore. That's not needed. And just for the example, we're not going to return it. Let's just echo it out to be quick. And we get parent class is doing something in child class. So really, that's the extent of working with inheritance. All it is, don't get confused by the big word, it's just a way to extend the properties and methods of one class over to another. We can inherit properties, we can inherit methods. If we want to extend one, we need to make sure that we call it. So if you've never worked with a PHP framework before, this is very common when you create something like a controller where you'll call your constructor function and then you'll have to add this as well. And this is telling the parent class within the framework to go ahead and call its constructor function before it works with whatever you've expanded with. So that's the extent of inheritance. It goes a little bit further, but this will get you started. Anytime you need to extend a class, add new functionality, just use the extends keyword along with inheritance.